Good morning, blood banking students. So for today, I will be discussing antiglobulin testing. Okay, now before we proceed, let us have a short definition of terms muna. Okay, let us begin with your anti-human globulin. Your anti-human globulin, it is also known as your Coombs reagent, and this is the reagent that we are going to use in your direct and indirect antiglobulin testing. Now, in blood banking class, when we are performing antiglobulin testing, may it be direct or indirect, we are actually detecting for sensitization of antibodies. Okay, sensitization of antibodies. Now, this antibody type, okay, in the field of blood banking, the most clinically significant type of antibody is actually your IgG. Now, for example, let's say, an in vivo sensitization. Okay? In vivo sensitization of RBCs. Okay? This is, for example lang class, a representation of an in vivo sensitization of your RBCs. Okay? Now, what do you think is the use of this AHG reagent? Ano actually ang gamit niyan sa antiglobulin testing? Now, if you recall your immunoserology, this IgG, they are small enough, they are not large enough to create an agglutination. That is why we have to add this reagent para it will serve as a bridge or link between these two antibodies. Okay? So, later on, when we proceed to procedures, siguro mas lalo nyong maiintindihan yung principle ng antiglobulin testing class. Okay? Now, again, this AHG reagent, pwede ang component niyan, may it be anti-IgG or pwede din complement component. Specifically, C3d. Okay? Now, ang pinaka-use lang niyan is to make a bridge or link between these two antibodies. Okay? Now, we have actually different types of AHG reagent. Pwede sigurong monoclonal yan or polyclonal. Meron din tayong tinatawag na monospecific or polyspecific. Now, let us differentiate these ones. Okay? Your monoclonal AHG, it is usually produced through hybridoma technology using a laboratory mice. Okay? Laboratory mice, monoclonal AHG, it is usually produced from hybridoma technology using these laboratory animals. And then, polyclonal naman, on the other hand, it is a type of AHG reagent that is prepared using the conventional method of AHG projection using rabbits or sheep or pwede ding goat class. Now, how about your monospecific and polyspecific AHG? Your monospecific anti-human globulin class, it only contains only one specificity, kaya monospecific. Okay? So, ang component niyan, isa lang. It's either anti-IgG or anti-C3d component. Now, polyspecific anti-human globulin naman, on the other hand, it usually contains both the IgG and the C3d. It usually contains anti-IgG and anti-C3d. Now, let us proceed with your direct antiglobulin testing first. Okay? Now, we perform direct antiglobulin test to detect in vivo sensitization of RBCs. Okay? In vivo sensitization of RBCs. Now, ano ang specimen na gagamitin natin when we perform direct antiglobulin test? Okay? The specimen should be whole blood or RBCs lang. Okay? Okay, now, sa specimen nating class, usually, yung ibang hospital ang ginagamit nila is whole blood. But, based on my experience sa internship and sa work ko, we usually use RCS, okay? And then, I think that would be the best specimen of choice when it comes to direct antiglobulin testing. Okay? Now, we perform direct antiglobulin testing. Ang indications kasi niyan is we are actually detecting HTR, hemolytic transfusion reactions. Pwede din, it is used to investigate hemolytic disease of the newborn and even acquired immune hemolytic anemia. Now, for the procedure of direct antiglobulin testing class. Actually, madali lang gawin to. Okay? You're going to get sample from your patient. Okay? You place it in EDTA tube para whole blood yan. Okay? Blood sample will be taken from the patient. Okay? Ang specimen natin should be RBCs. And then, if the patient is suspected of, let's say, HTR, usually, may naka-attach na dapat na RBCs sa kanyang, may naka-attach na dapat na antibodies sa kanyang RBCs. Okay, it is already sensitized. Okay, so representation lang yan, class. Okay, and then next thing that we do, syempre, is centrifuge mo yan, and then you get your packed RBCs, and then, i-transfer mo sa separate test tube. Okay? Separate mo sa another test tube. And then, this is your packed RBCs. And then, what are you going to do? You're going to wash your sample with NSS for a minimum of 3 times. Okay? 3 times mo yan iwawash. And then, after ng final wash, you're going to incubate it now with your, after washing, you're going to incubate it now with your AHG reagent, usually 2 drops. Okay? So, you're going to add 2 drops of AHG reagent sa iyong sample. And then, after adding AHG, you're going to incubate it now at 37 degrees Celsius. Now, balikan natin to yung sensitized RBCs natin kanina. If the patient is really positive for HTR, kung meron talagang in vivo sensitization na nangyari, there should be an antibody attached to his or her RBC. Now, itong AHG natin, let's say it is composed of anti-IgG. Okay? Mag-a-attach siya ngayon dun sa dalawang antibodies na naka-attach sa RBC. Creating now an agglutination. Okay, so it will serve as a bridge. Okay, it will serve as a bridge to create visible agglutination. Okay, and then after incubation, usually sa hospital ang ginagawa namin a minimum of 15 minutes. Okay, pero depende yan, class, iba-iba. Okay, pero sa amin 15 minutes of incubation. And then usually, class, when we are going to incubate it, okay, so yun lang pala. Okay, after incubating it for 15 minutes, you observe now for agglutination. Okay. Of course, the presence of agglutination, may it be micro or macroscopically, it usually indicates in vivo sensitization. And then next, we have your indirect antiglobulin testing. Okay, now we perform indirect antiglobulin testing to detect in vitro sensitization of RBCs. Now, this time, our specimen of choice would be the patient serum. Now, what is the indication of performing indirect antiglobulin testing? Okay, applications of indirect antiglobulin testing is for antibody detection, especially in cross-matching, antibody screening, antibody panel testing, and even antibody titration. Okay, so yan ang mga indications kung bakit tayo nagpo-perform ng indirect antiglobulin testing. Okay, so we have cross-matching, antibody screening, antibody panel testing, and then antibody titration for the determination of RBC phenotype. Okay. Now, let us proceed with the procedures in indirect antiglobulin testing. Okay, now the traditional method, class, of detecting antibodies is the indirect antiglobulin testing. Again, I will repeat, the traditional method of detecting antibodies is by using now this antiglobulin testing, indirect antiglobulin testing. Now, in this method, class, the patient's serum is being tested against RBCs with known antigens. Okay, so ang procedure niyan, ang unang procedure na gagawin natin, okay, in a one test tube, ilagay mo serum of your patient, 2 drops of patient serum, usually 2 drops dapat kapag serum, and then together with your reagent cells. Pag sinabi natin reagent cells, RCS preparation lang yan. Okay? With known antigen. So, let's say, A cells or B cells. Parang ganon. Okay? So, 1 drop of your serum, 2 drops of your serum, and 1 drop of your reagent cells. And then, after that, you're going to, in indirect antiglobulin testing kasi class, usually nagpo-perform pa rin kami ng immediate spin o yung tinatawag nating immediate phase. But in some laboratories, they do not, what do you call this? Hindi na nila ini-include kasi an immediate phase, usually it detects tawag dito. Pag sinabing immediate spin kasi class, okay, lagay natin siyan. Immediate spin, usually ang nadetect kasi is IgM antibodies. And an IgM antibodies, it is usually not clinically significant naman. Kaya yung iba, okay, ini-skip na nila yan. But for complete procedure na lang, include na lang natin. Okay? Now, after addition of your patient serum and your reagent cells, you can perform na your immediate spin. Pag immediate spin class, isi-centrifuge mo lang yan. Okay? For a minimum of, I think, 15 or 30 seconds. Okay? Parang ganon. Then, after immediate spin class, what are you going to do? You observe for reaction. I-check mo, i-dislodge mo yung cell button kung merong agglutination. Okay, na pag wala, you can now proceed to the next step. And then, after that class, okay, after mong i-dislodge yung cell button, you can now incubate it at 37 degrees Celsius. After immediate spin, diretso mo na agad siya sa water bath natin, incubating it at 37 degrees Celsius. Now, during the incubation phase class, you can actually add your enhancement media. Yung mga enhancement media natin may be added to increase the degree of sensitization. For example, we have your LISS. Ito kasi yung pinaka-common na ginagamit natin na enhancement media when we perform cross-matching. Okay? Now, ano nang gagawin natin after incubation? Usually, ini-incubate natin yan for 15 minutes. Okay? Now, after 15 minutes, okay, anong gagawin natin next? After incubation, ang gagawin mo, you centrifuge it again. You centrifuge, okay, centri mo for a minimum of, let's say, 45 or 30 seconds. And then, again, you observe for agglutination. You dislodge the cell button, and then, kung wala, ibalik mo ulit sa centrifuge. Ganon class. Okay, so centri, and then observe. Okay, observe for reaction. Tanggalin lang natin. Okay, centri, and then observe for agglutination. Pero kung wala naman, balik mo sa centrifuge, and then after centrifugation class, anong gagawin natin? You decant the supernatant, but you do not dislodge the cell button. Kasi, of course, masasali yan sa decantation. Again, huwag niyong kakalimutan class, do not dislodge the cell button during this period, but you have to decant the supernatant. And then, after that one, okay, after mo ma-decant na yun class, you have to wash it with NSS. Okay, wash it with NSS for a minimum of 3 times to remove now unbound antibodies. Okay, you wash it with NSS to remove unbound antibodies. Okay, and then after the final wash, anong gagawin natin class? After the final wash, you decant again the supernatant. Okay, you decant the supernatant, and then you add now your Coombs reagent, your AHG reagent, 2 drops. Okay, 2 drops of AHG reagent. And then again, ang principle nito, the AHG reagent, it will create a bridge or a link between the sensitized RBCs to enhance agglutination. Okay? And then, after adding your AHG reagent, ibalik mo sa centrifuge for a minimum of 30 seconds, ganyan. And then, you observe now for agglutination. You observe for agglutination. You observe for agglutination. Now, take note, class, if it is negative for agglutination, you always have to add your Coombs control cells o yung tinatawag nating check cells. Now, these check cells, it must be added to confirm if it is really negative.